So, in my continual watching of our Hitchcock 50 celebrations, I also added two Hitchcocks that we were not showing, but that I felt they needed to watch. Since I'm watching all this Hitchcock, I might as well throw everything at the wall. So, the one I started out with is the film I ended up liking the most. And so, unfortunately, like everything was kind of downhill from there. This film was amazing. This was 1936's Sabotage, also known as The Woman Alone. Stars Sylvia Sidney. She's my girl, so you know I'm going to love it. Oscar Homolka as her husband, and John Loder as the detective. And originally he wanted Robert Dunant to play the character of the detective, but was unable to get him for many reasons. The plot is that a husband and wife own a movie theater, and the wife had immigrated from America to England with her little brother. The husband has immigrated from somewhere in Eastern Europe much earlier. He is, unbeknownst to his wife, but known to the audience, a spy who is setting up, first he set up a blackout in London, and then he's setting up a bomb that's going to explode. John Loder plays what seems to be a greengrocer, but is actually an undercover Scotland Yard agent trying to discover who the spies are. Sylvia Sidney just runs a movie theater. She just wants to earn a living and feed her little brother, and that's what she wants out of life. And unfortunately, when you marry a spy, that's not what you get. This movie was so good. It's so succinctly made. There's so many great Hitchcockian cutaways, and then there's a sequence that I think is the most brutal thing possibly that Hitchcock has ever done. It's gonna be a spoiler. Pause it if you and fast forward past my hand if you don't want a spoiler. The kid is carrying what he thinks are film reels, but what we know is a bomb that's going to go off, and he's supposed to drop it off by 1:30. The bomb's going off 15 minutes after that. He keeps getting into shenanigans because he's 12, and so eventually he's sitting on a bus next to a puppy with a bomb next to him, and you're like, what the fuck? And then the bomb goes off! Hitchcock actually kills a boy and a puppy in the movie, and you're like, what? Because it's one thing to have a kid in peril and a puppy in peril, but to actually kill them? What? So then obviously Sylvia Sidney discovers that her husband is not only a spy, but had her little brother killed. He didn't mean to, but he knew that there was a chance the kid was going to die no matter what. And so I was just spoiling the whole movie. She just fucking stabs him. And that scene's really tense, too, because she's cutting up a roast. And she keeps looking at the knife and looking at him. And he's looking at her. And he doesn't think she's going to do it. And then when he realizes she's going to do it, he's going to try to kill her first. But then she's just like, meh. And, it's great. Great Sylvia Sidney performance. Great tense film. I can't believe they blew up a puppy and a little boy. I was I had to try to get myself, I had to compose myself when it was over. I was just, whoa. So this one you can watch on Filmstruck, and and you can rent it on Amazon, but watch it on Filmstruck, and it's just really good. The next one I watched was also from 1936. It's called Secret Agent, and it's an adaptation of a Somerset Maugham novel, and this one was not so great, but it had a good cast. The cast is John Gielgud. He's so young, you can't even believe. Peter Lorre, Madeline Carroll, and Robert Young, all of whom I think are in other Hitchcocks. I'm not sure about John Gielgud, but I know that Peter Lorre, Madeline Carroll, and Robert Young are all in other Hitchcocks. Basically, John Gielgud's a spy. He is supposed to find somebody and take them out. His partner is Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre is really, really sexy in this movie. Yes, I said that. That's a word that came out of my mouth. He's a ladies' man, so he owns the sexiness. Madeline Carroll is John Gielgud's wife, but not really his wife. That is his cover wife. And then Robert Young is flirting with the wife. It might be something more. There's murder and intrigue. It turns a little propaganda-esque towards the end. It's supposed to be set during World War I, but it really doesn't look like anything but the 1930s. It's one of those movies that's really in between his early British films and going into sort of the tense suspense films that he did in the 40s. So it's like almost there. Gielgud was great. Peter Lorre definitely steals the show in this one. So if you love Peter Lorre, definitely check this out. This one you can rent on Amazon. The next one I watched was The Paradine Case. This movie is a mess. You need to get it on DVD. This movie cost almost as much as Selznick produced this, and this movie cost almost as much as Gone with the Wind, and it is a mess and a half. It's Gregory Peck, Ann Todd, Charles Laughton, Charles Coburn, Ethel Barrymore, Louis Jourdan, and Alida Valli as Valli, and her name is all in cursive too. Louis Jourdan and Valli were trying to make their big English language debuts in this film and launch them. Gregory Peck, it just doesn't quite work. It's like a weird psychosexual love story mixed into a really boring crime drama, and Charles Laughton steals every scene that he's in, and Charles Coburn is underused, and just a bit of a mess. But there are sequences of it that are brilliant, and I think Louis Jourdan on the when he gives his final courtroom scene, I think is some of the best acting Louis Jourdan has ever done. So definitely, if you're interested in any of those actors, check it out. But it's one of those really, like, they threw a lot at the wall and not a lot stuck. And unfortunately, we have to see what's on the floor in this film. And this was the last film that Hitchcock made with Selznick, and he clearly was glad to get out of making films with Selznick. The next film I watched was The Trouble with Harry. This is set in Vermont. I believe it was also filmed in Vermont. It's the film debut of Shirley MacLaine. It also has John Forsythe, Edmund Gwynn, Mildred Natwick, Mildred Dunwick, Jerry Mathers, and Royal Dano. This was also the first of several films that were scored by Bernard Herrmann. And for me, honestly, the only things that worked about this movie were this Bernard Herrmann score. It was great. And the cinematography by Robert Burke's beautiful Technicolor, or of his division, whatever. Beautiful, beautiful Vermont. It's a black comedy. I felt it was very sexist. I didn't like any of the women. I'm in a bad place right now in terms of the representation of women in cinema, and so I think I just couldn't handle it. Shirley MacLaine's cute, but I just couldn't. I was not in the right place for this movie, even though it's beautiful and a great pitch black comedy. So, maybe I'll revisit this on a better weekend. The last one I watched was the 1956 version of The Man Who Knew Too Much. I really love the Peter Lorre version of The Man Who Knew Too Much. It is a fucked up movie. There's like a sun cult and all kinds of stuff goes on, and it's just economically short film, tense, really perverse. This one is a big, long, sometimes Orientalist, clearly made with movie stars in their movie star personas instead of characters. More beautiful, Robert Burke's Vistavision color cinematography, another great Bernard Herrmann score, but it's got an extra, 30 minutes that the other film didn't have, and it drags. I will say I liked Doris Day in this film. I like her dramatic acting. It made me understand how bittersweet Que Sera Sera is even more, seeing her sing it in the context of the film. And Jimmy Stewart is all Jimmy Stewarting it, but I sort of prefer hysterical Jimmy Stewart in like Frank Capra mode more. So if you don't know the plot, a couple have their child kidnapped and end up in an international assassination plot. In this one, it's globetrotting from Morocco back to London rather than Switzerland. The parts in Morocco are just a little Orientalist for my taste. It's like Kismet all over again. I will say, though, it made me want to eat Moroccan food. Moroccan food is delicious. So, this is definitely... Truffaut apparently liked this version better than the other version, but I can disagree with Truffaut, I guess. And basically, I'm saying the one of all these films, the one that I recommend the highest was Sabotage. I really want to rewatch that one, and it had the most what the fuck moments in it. I actually have not read the Hitchcock Truffaut book. I'm trying to watch all the all the Hitchcock movies first. I have a couple of his silents left that I need to track down, and like a couple of his 30s ones. But I've hit almost all the major ones now, except for a couple of those late 60s films that we're showing next week. I'm going to catch up on them, and then I'm finally going to read Hitchcock Truffaut, even though I've owned that book forever. These are a bunch of Hitchcock films. You can find them. Hitchcock is widely available. He made like 50 something films, and I've seen 40 plus of them now. So like I feel almost like I'm well versed in Hitchcock. If you want to discuss Hitchcock with me, you go on Twitter. We can talk about how Shadow of a Doubt is still his best. He was his favorite too. Hitchcock month is almost over. I've got a couple more to watch next week. Tell me what your favorite Hitchcock film is. Let's discuss.